I'm starting to get really intense kidney pain because all I've been drinking for a week is orange and blue Kool-Aid. But guys, Shawn Payton has done it again. We are going to shock the world because of the culture that Shawn Payton has built, and we see a shining example of it happening right now in West Virginia. We know Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. You could have the most talented players on the planet, the best schemes, and if you don't have a winning culture, it means nothing. And on the other side of that, you could have less talented players, a worse system, and you could have a winning culture, push all of that to the side and power through. And Shawn Payton is proving to the NFL again that he is an elite builder of culture. And we're going to break all that down and so much more in this video. If you like the Denver Broncos, it helps me out a lot if you would hit that like button as hard as Zach Allen is going to hit Aaron Rodgers in the backfield this week. Let's dive in. So we know we got horrible news, and that news was that Alex Singleton blew his ACL, yet he played the rest of that game. 3 quarters of football, still led the team in tackles. Absolutely wild, and I haven't seen a story like that. I remember when Terrell Davis tore his ACL and was in for a couple series after that and came out, and that was like a gutsy thing. But man, to play 3 quarters of physical football is wild. Injury like that ends your season is catastrophic, and it sends players into depressions, and they want to just go and recover on their own. There are very few cultures that it's like, hey, no, I'm a part of this. And while I could be sitting on the sideline uncomfortable in this cast and just gimping around and watching all my friends have fun, it takes a very special individual and a very special culture to be like, no, I'm actually going to stay here. I'm actually going to go with them on their next trip rather than come all the way back to Denver, be with his family and friends. And so that is just major shout out to Singleton and major shout out to the culture that Shawn Payton has built. And even just hearing today in his conversations with some people, Zach Stevens, DNVR, love all of their coverage of the Broncos. They really are one of my go-to places, was saying that he basically said, Alex Singleton basically said, I'm riding with this team all year long. And that is a very rare thing. How many times do you see a player get hurt and then you never see them again? Well, Shawn Payton is doing this again because do you remember the last time we had this happen? It was Tim Patrick 2 years in a row. First year when he had his first injury and Nathaniel Hackett, you didn't see him anywhere. Last year, that culture was starting to be built, and you see Tim Patrick on the sideline of those games at the end of the season. And so it's just incredible. And I think it's a testament to both the player and the culture. And that's just a very rare thing to happen. As we look forward to this game, it's that culture that is going to put us through even just this like cross-country road trip and all hanging out at this beautiful resort and paintballing and horseback riding and bowling and all that stuff. That's uncommon, you guys. And it is going to take a young and hungry team and just glue them together even more so in a way that we're going to overplay our talent. And we saw that last week where we go in 7-point underdogs and that group was already together. Just wait till you see them Sunday when they're even more together. And it's not like you have to cover up a bunch of bad players. Instead, we have an elite defense, and that is coming through from all the national reports as well. These are things I said in the offseason, and all y'all in Broncos country backed me, and a lot of you were saying it, and it was on the Twitterverse, but the national media just laughed at it, even ranking our defense 30th in the league. And you take a look at all of these stats that right now we are a top 6 defense, and that's after playing an incredible offense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And taking a look here at who is leading the league in quarterback knockdowns throughout the first 3 games. You have Aiden Hutchinson, who was a high draft pick out of Michigan. They really scheme for him. And then you look at Zach Allen at number 2, that he has knocked quarterbacks down almost 8 times through 3 games. Pretty impressive when you consider how little the Steelers actually dropped back and threw the ball because they were just milking the clock because our offense hadn't hit its stride yet. And so this is a number that you're just going to see continue to jump through the roof. I said he's like baby JJ Watt. He played with Watt when they were together in Arizona, and everyone's like, oh, that's a ridiculous take. And he is looking every bit of that baby JJ Watt, and this defensive line is something to reckon with, and we're playing up against a really banged up Jets offensive line. And so I think that is a matchup that is definitely in our favor. And to say that we're an elite group here, one of the really cool things is seeing the bounce back of Vance Joseph from people wanting to run him out of town after we lost, let the Dolphins score 70 on us. It's really cool to see that Vance Joseph has been able to mold and flex, and he doesn't start with like, what is the scheme we run? He starts with, who is our defensive talent and how can I make a scheme around them that makes sense? So he's like, I'm not a 3-4 guy. I'm not a 4-3 guy. I'm a defensive coordinator. So I do whatever is going to work for the talent I have. And that is what is going to make us be okay this week, is that it is a huge blow to lose Alex Singleton, but I know Vance Joseph isn't coming in there like, hey, how am I just going to swap somebody out for Alex Singleton? Instead, he is going to really wipe the slate clean and rebuild this to whoever it is that we throw out there. You could easily see a world where you're playing more safeties down in the box, and I feel very confident about our corners to hold up against Aaron Rodgers, and I feel extremely confident through Vance Joseph, and we should feel confident in him because we see that the Denver Broncos are a top 6 defense in almost every single category, which we'll get to in a second. It's cool to see interviews from the dudes, just like there's zero complacency. There were some haters on Twitter after they saw Club Dub, which is, I think, the biggest proof that Shawn Payton is a player's coach, is he's bringing music and fog machines and a party every single time we win. And a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, the Broncos are doing that because it's their Super Bowl and, see how they do next week. Well, it's not like we've gotten complacent, and you hear that time and time again, even just hearing Riley Moss. Yeah, he's the number 1 ranked corner on PFF last week, but he's still saying the hay is never in the barn. We're not done with this thing until we are pushing into the playoffs, and that is something that's going to happen as long as we can stay relatively healthy. So looking at, the Denver Broncos addition of Quan Alexander and what he could be. And, I think in a few weeks, just looking at what he did as a linebacker, you do not want to get hit by this dude. Just seeing like his big game mentality. The big worry with him is, of course, that we are playing him after a year after he has an Achilles injury. But just seeing that this guy is a legit baller, has legit potential, and it's exciting to think, how is Vance Joseph going to make use of his skill set? Because he certainly, when he was at the top of his game, was one of the best linebackers in the game. It looks like the Jets are also going to be without their middle linebacker as well. And so I think that's kind of a wash there. But just seeing here that even national beat writers, Mina Kimes from ESPN, came out and just talked about how scared she actually is of this Denver Broncos defensive line, and was like, I didn't think anything of them going into the year. And that's exactly what we were trying to put out on this channel, was like, hey, the rest of the media is sleeping on us, but this team is actually good. Our defensive line is actually good.
Pretty good about this front with Cooper, Benito, and Allen. And they're actually 3rd in pass rush win, 3rd in pressure rate without blitzing. Like, they're pretty legit group.
They are a pretty legit group. I mean, we are in the top 6 in pretty much every big statistical category you can think of. The one area we need to really step up this week is Breece Hall scares me, especially without Singleton out there as the signal caller and green dot guy. Still have not heard definitive report of who will be our actual signal caller on the game day. But as I hear that, we'll definitely pass that along to you. But here is the, going to the receipts here. The Denver Broncos are in the top 6 in all of these categories, with how many points we're letting up per game, how many yards teams are moving per game. There are several of these categories that we're like top 1 or 2, and that is a phenomenal thing, that if our defense can do this and our offense can just play a C average game or a B game, we are going to win 9 games is our floor still, and I feel very, very confident about that. The one area of concern offensively, and the one thing that gives me quite a bit of hope, a great little article written here in Mile High Report, just about one of the issues that has plagued us now 2 years in a row, is that our tight end production is awful. It was last in the NFL last year and continues to be so. And so as I'm trying to think glass half full, why might that be? I think my first big hope is that we've seen Shawn Payton just reveal different parts of the playbook each and every game for Bo Nix, that he's been trusted with more and more and more. Is the middle of the field and the tight end just that last layer that Shawn Payton's going to flip the page, just be like, all right, Bo, you're ready for chapter 5 now. You've passed the test, chapters 1 through 4. Let's start throwing to your tight ends. Is it Greg Dulcich not being the dude that we saw him when we played Jacksonville a couple years ago. But my big hope is that the Denver Broncos are flipping the chapter open and Bo Nix gets that area of the playbook. Because if you all of a sudden have Dulcich and he plays like he has flashed for us, we are in very, very good shape there. We also have that tight end from the Chargers for a while, Parnham, and just an absolute beast. Lombardi, our offensive coordinator, loved him and kept him when he was with the Chargers over Hunter Henry, who went on to New England and has had a great career there. So has a lot of trust in him, talking like a 6'8" jump ball kind of dude. And so I'm very excited. The other cool storyline is this week, I think, is Bo Nix's first touchdown pass, and I think it's going to happen in Nathaniel Hackett's house right in front of him. And I just think there's some poetic justice to the Denver Broncos rebuild happening way faster than we had thought when Nathaniel Hackett won 5 games for us. And I'm super excited to have you all along for the ride. Thank you so much. And we got a ton to Bo-LIEVE in.